hop on to our third part, Azure from Scratch 3. Okay, same set of slides. It's about me. Okay, and this is Azure Functions. Okay, so yeah, let me add one more thing. Or the Lambda function. So basically, as and Lambda function was which we talked about, right? So they are event triggered kind of activities. Okay. So if some event is getting triggered, then they will act. Okay. Or what they can be, they like you can set up Azure. You can put your Azure function as a worker process, and after every certain time of interval, whatever set of actions you define, they would do that. Okay, so for example, if you publish some changes in your source control, okay, or comments has been issued onto the source control, like my GitHub control is there. On top of that, I get any comments. Okay, let's take an example this, and yeah, issues. Okay, if I have a GitHub repo, and if anybody is coming and saying that your particular code has certain issues, okay, like they would be adding the comments, right? So you won't be very active and checking out whether who had added the comment or who is facing that particular problem. Okay, so they would comment on. Okay, so in order to resolve them, and you don't want to peek into your repository every time, you may have thousands of repositories like that. So what you do is, like, you can enable Azure Functions on top of this. Okay, so whenever a comment will be added, so comment adding is an it's an event to the GitHub, and it can itself create an you can put a monitoring on top of it, so that whenever a comment is added, an event would be triggered to which actually runs an Azure function. Okay, and it would say that Azure function what you need to do. Okay, so my Azure function what would have is, like, it will have an event and data. Okay, so my event is this trigger, the comment issued is a event. Okay, and the data is the new comment issued, or what is a comment has been added. That is my data. Okay, so that data and event, and with the help of a code, okay, I can do certain activities. Okay, so that comprises of that makes what Azure Functions is. Okay, code and event. Okay, so in traditional architecture, what happens is, like, you have different layers: web layer, middleware layer, processing data layer, everything. Okay, and you'll be needing a lot of servers to run each and every services. You need to host them, like you need something called as you need a certain amount of memory at web tier. Okay, you need something like certain of memory of server, like A1 series, or like maybe premium series of VM in middleware, or at the processing may have bigger series of VM you may want. And then at storage, you would you would have storage. Okay, so you need a lot of processing, everything, and you need to maintain this particular service, everything, right? So think about a situation like where I doesn't need any servers, and whatever I make a call, or I trigger an event, it just does my whatever I mention in a code. Okay, just it depends upon an event trigger, it do that activities. If I say start, then it would start something and do certain activity. If I say stop, and it would it would stop certain activity which is already doing. Okay, so that is Azure function. Think of an example like if you are ordering an Uber cab. Okay, so once the Uber is actually coming nearby your home, okay, if it's in around 200 meters of your radius, where is the pickup point you have set, then actually once it enters that particular radar, right, it actually makes that your particular device, or at server side, the Uber actually makes a telemetry call. Okay, make a calls to Azure Functions. Okay, in Azure Functions, I have written, right, like do something give try to make a write up a message. Okay, and or it will say that, yeah, I'm near 200-meter radius. Okay, this car says that, or I mean the Uber app would say that I'm nearby 200-meter radius. So when I say that I'm nearby 200-meter radius, so that particular sentence would be recorded in streaming analytics. Okay, and it would recognize this particular pattern. Like nearby 200 meters is it's almost near to the the pickup location. So and then it would trigger a call to Event Hub, and this Event Hub will have alternative for this. And what it would do is, like, for every message which is kind of it's in Uber cab is in 200-meter radius, so it will put up a notification, or it will call Azure function stating that put up a message saying that like your car, your pickup has arrived, okay, or Mr. X has arrived to your pickup location. Okay, so that you can do, like, what you can do is, like, if you want to send an email to the customer, you can use SendGrid, or you want to send a SMS or notification, mobile notification, you can use Twilio for that, and then a user is notified. Okay, so you'll get a pop-up right whenever your cab arrives nearby. So this is a complete experience which is there. Okay, so they can be Lambda functions or Azure functions implemented behind it. Okay, so I mean, putting up a notification, it's a very lightweight process. Okay, and I mean, if you use certain kind of servers or bigger server for those kind of activities, it doesn't make sense, right? Okay, so that's why we have something called as the cheaper alternatives, or lightweight alternatives for doing these activities. Okay, and never bother, like it doesn't only take up only lightweight activities, or like putting up only notification. It can process larger stuffs as well. Okay, and these Azure functions can be scalable at any moment. They are set up with auto scale. Okay, and have good transient failures, and whatever app service tier or app service plan you select, based upon that you will have this Azure functions. Okay, and we'll cover that later as well. Okay, but simply, like, you can see that there's no servers, or you're not making a call to a IP address and then doing your stuff. Okay, you're just calling an Azure functions and everything is done for you. Okay, so the same approach which we were using with a monolithic architecture or traditional architecture, we are able to do with a newer approach. Okay, and the Azure functions or the events and the codes behind it, actually they are categorized into three different types. So one is timer based. Okay, so it's kind of a scheduler. Okay, you can schedule a time for the Azure functions. And one is data based. Okay, so these are all sort of event triggering parameters. Okay, so every 5 hours trigger a call to Azure functions. So that's a parameter. So time is a parameter. Time is a triggering parameter for me, and data is also triggering parameter for me. Like, you can see that there's Azure function, and Azure function input is Azure queue. Okay, and its output is some storage. Okay, so whenever a message is added to queue, trigger event to Azure function. So data can also be a sort of event to a event triggerer to Azure functions. Or you can have a HTTP call, which you saw that Archana was discussing about the Lambda function, which was making an HTTP post call to Azure Cloud and even the AWS Cloud, right? So those sort of stuff, like these are HTTP, or or your webhook calls. Okay, can be a type of trigger, Azure function triggers. Okay, so there are 3 types of triggers. And what's new in this, like in Azure Virtual, like the same stuff we were able to use, right, in traditional monolithic architecture, we would be using something as Cloud Service, Azure Virtual Machines, Azure Web Apps, and Azure WebJobs. Okay, and we are doing the same stuff. How it is different here is we're going to discuss now. Okay, so why to use an Azure function if we have already a solutions available? Okay, so Azure Virtual Machines, what you need to do is, like, you need to install softwares, Windows services, and you need to install OS if it's recommended, and it's completely IaaS infrastructure, so you have a complete control of server. Okay, you can choose your OS, but you need to take care of patching, maintaining, and scaling, auto scale stuff, everything. So that's a disadvantage with Azure Virtual Machines. you have something called as cloud service, and it's got older. Okay, now service fabric is a newer cloud service. So in cloud service we have web rows, worker rows, and you need to maintain the configurations, and you need to mention the how much it can scale or scaling configurations, environment details, everything you will be having, right? The same environment details, everything, app settings, everything will be there. Shit, I didn't. Okay, I'm recording right. Yeah. So the same thing, it's there in here as well. Okay, and like in Azure Functions as well, you have app settings, every stuff. Okay, on this as well. And what you need to take care is like think of that if your IS goes down. Okay, or .NET, whatever you have installed, it have some issues. So you may try to reinstall it. Or one more case is like which we usually find it, or I found in the past, is like if you're trying to resize your cloud service, right? Cloud service used to have issues. So if you're trying to resize your cloud service, if you have a A0 or smaller instances and you want to go for a bigger instances like H series VMs or something, performance VMs, and if that is not available in your DC, then you will have a bigger trouble. Okay, you can't resize. Okay, and automatic scaling also, auto scale can fail at moment, and there's 1% of chances. Okay, so these all things would be taken care by Azure, and you doesn't need to bother about them. Then you will be happy, right? So that's our disadvantage with cloud service which we have over Azure Functions. And yes, Azure Web Apps or and WebJobs we do have, right? So we have Azure websites. Okay, and Azure websites have hosting plans. Okay, where you can combine many sites on one server, and you can scale up to many servers. Okay, a lot scaling jobs you can do on top of it, and you have WebJobs as well. Okay, simplified background tasks. Okay, so this is actually the basis of the Azure Functions where it came up. Okay, with the Azure Web App or Azure Websites concepts only, this Azure Functions have been come up. I mean, like basically, if you take Azure Websites, the mobile app, API app are an example of Azure Websites. Okay, and basically, if you take Azure WebJobs, okay, so that is a parent of Azure Functions. Okay, and so we talked about a lot of disadvantage of that whatever features we had before, right? So first, so let's discuss about Azure Functions, and it's simplified programming model. Okay, what you need to write is like even if 5 lines of codes can do a lot of different stuff. Okay, so we'll know once we gonna discuss about it, and you doesn't need to boil your midnight oil for doing stuff like you need to configure a load balancer, you need to configure auto scale, or you need to think of a scenario like if I resize it should not fail. It need to, or you need to think about a failure or the kind of environment or sort of stuff. You doesn't need to think about all these boilerplates. Okay, you just forget everything and just code it. That's it. Other things would be taken care by Azure, and you just concentrate on your business requirement. Okay, so the pricing model which we have is there are two pricing models. One is pay as you go. Okay, and other is only pay for what you use, and this is a new pricing model which came to Azure, and it is also called as a dynamic pricing model. Okay, called as dynamic. Okay, so why it is dynamic we will discuss. Pay as you go is like if you select in since Azure Function is a part of app service, right? So you can select service tiers, right? You can go with free, basic, everything, right? So those are pay as you go models. So these are the app service plans which we have, right? So which is like the pay as you go models where free, shared, basic, standard, premium we have. Okay, and like you can select these models, and like whatever tier you select according to that you will be getting charged according to your usage. Okay, and going next, and Azure function pricings are they are dynamic. Okay, so pay for what you use. Okay, you can still use existing app service plans. Okay, you can use your dedicated service plans like this one. Okay, or like you can predict your monthly cost with that, or you can use with you can use dynamic, and like you are not confident in stating that what may be my monthly cost which can come, or monthly usage. Okay, in that case you can go with a dynamic plan for 1 month, and you can know the usage, how exactly your app is, your Azure function is using. According to that, you can switch to your, dedicated service plans. Okay, and very next. So that's a consumption plan or dynamic plan which we are talking about. Okay, so there's a dynamic plan, right? Or the consumption plan. I said it about the consumption plan. It's like it's number of like I've said in previous and day before yesterday's session as well. So it's about, consumption plan is nothing but it's a billing model which is actually bills or charges users basing upon number of executions, CPU times, and RAM. Okay, RAM usage. Okay, it actually does this particular billing calculations on top of this. Okay, and you have, like if you're testing your Azure functions and it's very low scale and you doesn't need to bother because you have around 1 lakh executions for free, and CPU time into RAM, GB, or the GB of data which ingress or outgress, or with Azure Functions, you copy data, do all the stuff, right? So that is around 400,000 GBs limit. Okay, till that you doesn't need to bother. After that, this quota ends, then you can't run your Azure Functions more. Okay, until unless next billing cycle triggers. And we have cutting costs. Okay, so how actually it controls the cost. Like what you can't do is like you can't each and every function can run to at max to 5 minutes. So each execution of your Azure functions can run only at max for 5 minutes. Okay, you can't run more than that. I mean, you can't put a logic which actually can run more than 5 minutes. Okay, and you can't you have a daily quota as well in GBs. Okay, you can't cross them daily, and you do all the stuff. If I allow this, then a lot of customers would just use this free plan and then they do all this stuff, but they won't be using its premium features. And how you can reduce your cost is like you actually can I mean you have a efficient code, okay, which can actually run below 5 minutes, and it actually can run faster. Okay, and it would have very quicker invocation times, like quick trigger times, okay, and quick ending times. So it triggers, and in within few 5 seconds it actually completes a task. So it should be like that way. Okay, you need to write a code in such a way, and reduce the memory requirements. Like you're trying to copy some stuff where you're putting a lot of processing logic onto your like if you're doing a copy stuff, you don't copy from different area to your machine, your Azure functions memory, and then from your Azure functions memory to another place. Okay, rather what you do is like you just trigger a call which can copy from 2 different locations which is outside of Azure functions. Okay, and which can reduce your memory requirements as well. And the benefits are much more, it's easy to configure. You doesn't need to bother about configuring other or concentrating on other stuff, and it's easily integrated with all of the CI continuous integration stuff, Kudu, easy auth, and certificates also you can handle with this. You can have a custom domains with itself, and you can have an app setting files as well for this. Okay, and this is cost effective, as you know that you can go for consumption or you can go a defined plan as well. And they are no service to maintain. You doesn't need to bother about the IP or some other thing. They would take in care, or automatic scaling will happen. So what is serverless is like I mean there's nothing called as serverless, as I say about like there are servers in behind that. Okay, and you can use a third-party PaaS wherever possible. Like you can use document DB or auto for authenticating your Azure Functions request or something else as well. You can integrate with Azure Functions. Okay, or you can run your custom code on Azure Functions as well. Okay, and which would be called as a function as a service. You would have heard SaaS, PaaS, IaaS, right? So this is FAS. Okay, functions as a service. Okay, so once you write a certain function which actually do a lot of logical stuff, you can sell these particular functions to customers. Okay, and if you do that, then it would be fast. Okay, a real world example which we'll be talking about is like we have a monolithic architecture. Okay, what it would do is like you trigger a web request to web server. Okay, and what web server would do is like it would validate your request. Okay, and it would have a webhook which posts a message to queue. Okay, and which would actually says to generate a license, generate license and send email to the customer. Okay, once that new purchase is done, okay, there will be nightly report which actually generates a builds or reports nighttime, where it can say that how many requests came and how many licenses were generated, those kind of stuff. Okay, if anything happens to the webhook, and it would report an error. And once you do all this web request succeeded, you'll give a successful message to the customer back when in HTML, CSS, or JavaScript. Okay, so this is all monolithic architecture which we have, a traditional architecture. And if we actually use an Azure function, right, each and everything we can actually break into small pieces or break into sort of microservices and do every actions. Okay, so it comprises of a lot of around 6 activities in them. Okay, so the payment provided involves a bank payment or bank authentication stuff. Okay, so what you can do is like you can break all this particular flows into 6 different Azure function stuff. Okay, where the one thing, like whenever a customer pays a payment, okay, or it asks for a payment, like you want to pay, then you need to divert him to a divert him into a payment gateway, right? So it will make a webhook call. Your API on which the customer is interacting, or application on which the customer is interacting, right? When it wants a payment gateway, it would actually trigger a webhook, payment provider webhook, okay, which will trigger Azure function, and Azure function will have a code which will say that put a message in queue in this manner. Okay, so once the message is in queue, okay, and once the message is in queue, and you can say that generate a license message. Okay, that also there would be an Azure functions for that, and you can create a license file in your blob storage, because blob is binary large object storage, right? So it can store any kind of files. So when it's PDF or any dot extensions, it can store. So you can have one Azure function stating that create a license file, PDF file or something, and once the license file is pushed, trigger a call, okay, which actually sends email to customer saying that yeah, your license has been created successfully. Okay, that's another Azure function. And once that is done, you can report error webhook. Okay, if any issues had happened, like what you can see is like while the call was triggered from client tab to the webhook, payment provider webhook. If this fails from the client call, then those errors can be stored in your table storage, so that you can go through the logs and say that which particular customer's request was failed and why. Okay, so you can store such kind of information, even errors as well, and you can validate your license API, and that can be implemented with like if a customer comes again, once he get the license, he will be he will get a provision, login credentials, everything, he logs in, and if you want to validate his license, whether like what particular time it is or what is the time to renew it, okay, you can validate his license API from your database lookup. And for this, like this database lookup or SQL statements, everything you can put in under Azure functions. Okay, and you doesn't need to write a 120 or 200 lines of code for that in your Visual Studio, or create a C# file or project for that. But just create an Azure function, and it would take care of validating your license and returning a proper message to the customer. Okay, so while these all things happens, right, you would try to if you have any scheduled tasks which actually can can generate reports overnightly. Okay, it would show that whole day night, whole day, whatever license have been created for what customers, their details, everything would be generated in a beautiful report, and then you can define it. And those kind of stuff also you can do in Azure functions. So you can just see the changes, right? Whatever the complete monolithic architecture, whatever you had, you actually decomposed it into 6 different Azure functions, okay, or 6 different small microservices. Okay, so it's a combination of these all microservices, makes something called as a function app. Okay, so it's built up of app. Okay, so the app consists of all microservices. Okay, so that is function app. And Azure function use cases are so when you want to try some experimenting, like if a payment gateway is working or not, okay, if you want to develop a prototype, it's easy. And each and every functions you can hook up to many applications, okay, because function is one and there can be one to many relation with each of every function. There's a lot of reusability with these functions. But if you want to use a function which is on your .NET code, what you can do is, or what you do is, like, you need to have a license, you need to have an API hosted separately for different apps, okay. If you don't do that, you need to take care at your database level which particular app data, where it goes, okay, which particular API it calls and where its data goes, you need to take care. But with Azure Functions, you have a lot of independency, okay. You can reuse the same code, you just change certain variables and you're done. The feature is ready. Okay, so those are sort of use cases which you have, and one particular interesting use case is like so this particular Azure like Azure functions are there, right? They make up function app. Okay, you can actually scale up each and every individual services independently. Okay, you if you want to like a lot of nightly reports are there, and you want to there were a lot of licenses were being created in the morning, and there would be a lot of load onto your this one, right, on your nightly reports. So you can actually, it automatically scales, or you can set an upper limit as well, okay, where it will actually reach and it would do that. Okay, even on high load, you can independently scale this one. You doesn't need to scale all of this. But if you are sitting on any cloud service or other service, you actually need, what you do is, like, irrespective of whatever APIs you are hosting, your APIs have thousand REST APIs in it. But if you want to scale up, then you need to scale up a complete server. You can't scale up an individual URL in that particular API. Okay, so if you have something API which is says that provisioning API, okay, so which provisions or onboards a customer, so that would be triggered when I'll have a bigger sale, so a lot of people will get registered to my subscription, so I need to scale that particular API only. I doesn't want to scale other APIs. Okay, so in that case, this is in function app, it's possible. Okay, it doesn't need to scale up a whole machine, rather you just scale up your own single small API which you want to provide fault tolerant service to customer or to the request. Okay, and you have a lot of adapters to integrate with other systems like Azure Functions. You can put onto with any CI/CD tools, or you can integrate with source control or anything else. Okay, and so think of like real world scenario, like you have a build pipeline, okay, and once everything, like a build server triggers or someone checks in code, okay, and a build server builds a successful code, and once it puts onto release, or once it's moved from release to production, so once it's deployed into production, you'll get a message on your Slack communication tool stating that there's been there's been a new rollout happened onto the production. Please go and validate if you are impacted or if everything is correct or not. Okay, so those kind of activities you can do with Azure Functions in real time. Okay, so this is a URL of Azure Functions, and so the same thing like Azure Functions, you can the URL would be myfunctionapp.scm.azure website, since they are built on top of Azure websites, right? So it's like that. Let me go and to a portal. Same thing, the content inside the Azure the function app, you can access with the Kudu console, because it's hosted on Azure website, right? Azure website has native support to Kudu, so you can manipulate your files, everything. You can see the content of your file via Kudu, or you can actually go directly into your like there would be file share which would be created when you create a function app. Okay, you can explore through the files, you'll see that your data file, log files, and the site files inside it. Okay, and so two particular demos which I have made is like one thing is I'll have a code on my GitHub. Okay, so whenever a issue or comment would be added, okay, I'll have a webhook trigger function on top of it. Okay, I'll have a GitHub webhook. So I'll have this GitHub webhook trigger, okay, GitHub webhook, and which would actually trigger our Azure Functions, okay, whenever a comment is issued. Okay, so this particular demo is like it's there. So when you create a, okay, let me put this as, no, I need to comment this because it's my GitHub secret, right? Okay, and it's checked into cloud, so it may be a problem for me. So this is my GitHub, and so when you want to create a, actually, like when you create a function, right, you will have this function for, like, let me create a function that's better to show. Okay, so these are my function app tab. So these are the new feature like function app and this Cosmos DB, that's why they are visible here. So this is my function app which I already have. Okay, for you I'll be creating it for freshly and I'll show you. And these are the two functions which I've created. They are loading up. Okay, so one is the GitHub webhook I have, another is HTTP trigger I have. Okay, so how to create a function is like, I'll create a duplicate in this tab and I'll show you how to create a Azure function. So this particular GitHub hook, right, it doesn't have much code. I just have this much code itself. Okay, and I do very great stuff. So I'll go here, not most stuff, and go plus new. I would click Azure function. Yes. Once I click Azure functions, yeah, my function app. Okay, so they're not Azure functions, it's function app. So I can create this function app. So my function, let's test function app. Okay, and I'll create a, okay, this RG. And yeah, I said, right, there are two plans, one dedicated or app service plans we have, or consumption plans, like it would be, charged by number of runs you do, executions you do. I'll just select a consumption plan. Okay, and then select our place, Southern India, and then you can create a storage for this. Yes, I'll create storage, and I don't know what, I'll just create it. Location is a constraint. It's not able to create it right current moment. So you create like that. Okay, once you create, you will have your function up created like this. You'll have this page. Okay, there's another page as well, like where you can actually go directly with, if you don't have your Azure subscription, right, you have one particular, since you have 1 lakh calls for free, right? So you have, yeah, functions.azure.com. So this is Azure Functions portal itself. Without having an Azure subscription, you actually get a time around 1 hour or something. You can run or code your Azure functions and test them. Okay, and this is what this portal is, functions.azure.com. This is the same experience which is driven up here. Okay, and so this is Azure function. So you'll have this integrate tab, manage tab, and monitor tab. So when you add, you need to select a template which before creating, so you can try it for free. So like this, what you're gonna do is like you can select I said right, there are three triggers which you can do trigger Azure function: one timer, one data, another is webhook or HTTP calls. So this is the same thing. So I can choose a scenario and I create this function, or I can I have custom function. So let me see if I want to show up it's created or what. Let me go and check whether it's created or not. It threw an error when we were running that last time. Okay, let's go and check whether it's created. Test. Yes, it's had created. Okay, but we got error, but it had created. Okay, so the main things we need to observe is when you like create a test function, what you get is these all things. Like you have a storage account where actually so you have a service plan which you selected, the consumption plan, and it's in Australia, that's why it's Australia East plan, and this is the storage account where exactly your code or these files go and stores. Okay, your app settings, everything gets stores. Okay, so you can go to your storage, and if you want to see what kind of files it has been storing, then you can go to your file server. So it would be in the file share. Okay, so this file share can be shared by multiple customers as well. Okay, so these are the files which you will have. So this is a data file. If I create a function, okay, then I'll get my data in this functions. Okay, so this function secrets or app settings will be stored in here. Okay, and so those are the files or things which would be created when you create Azure function. So once your function is there, and what I do is like, yeah, this is my other function tag which I created, and this is my existing one. Okay, and what I do is like I'll just go and create a function app, and you can create a default this one customized, or you can create your custom function. So in custom function you have a lot of different options. You can see that, like you can create a timer triggered JavaScript as well. You can run with a C# or F# code. You can run JavaScript code, or you can run any languages like PHP, Python, TypeScript, anything, or Batch or Bash or anything you can run. Okay, so any code you can keep on Azure Functions and you can run on Azure. Okay, irrespective of any language or platform. Okay, and scenarios as well are there. You want to do for monitoring, experimental data processing, or API webhook, or you want to do certain core apps, core works. Okay, so for now what we're gonna do is like we're gonna do something called as GitHub issue. Like what happens is like this is my issue page, right, or comments page. So whenever a user, like a person, like you have forked from my repo, right, you want to comment saying that this is not looking good, or the billing API which I shared with you guys, it's not working fine. You can comment out it here, and once you comment out here, I need to get an email, or I need to get a sort of any activities I should do with the help of Azure Functions. I doesn't need to monitor 24/7. What I can do is like where is my GitHub? GitHub. Okay, yeah, GitHub C#. That's my C# code. Oh, yeah, it's my JavaScript code. Okay. So you can select a C# code or F# or anything. Like let's choose this JavaScript code, and let's name this GitHub. So I know this JavaScript code, and GitHub webhook test. Okay, and this is a function, my function name. Okay, so I create it. I'll have my default code which can trigger the GitHub stuff. Okay, and you get a function URL. Okay, you copy this, paste it in Notepad, and you have GitHub secret. Okay, so in order to like secret is like client key and client secret, you can say. Okay, so we said we worked with Azure AD, right, where we have client ID and client secret. So these are both like that only, because now your client ID will, or this particular function would try to make a call to your GitHub. Okay, so once you add the secrets as a webhook into GitHub, right? So once you add, I have this details, okay, and I pasted in in Notepad. What I go is like I go in my settings. Okay, I have something called as webhooks. Okay, okay, in webhook I can go and add a webhook. Okay, and when I add a webhook, okay, let me give the password. Once I give my password, I can give the payload URL. So payload URL is your this one, your client ID function URL. Okay, and your secret is GitHub secret. Okay, so you put your GitHub secret and you select application/JSON. Okay, and what you can do is like you can just push the event, or you can you can select an individual event as well. So these all are event which can you can do on GitHub. Okay, you can delete a branch, commit a branch, or you can label a branch, you can issue a comment, or what we need is issue comment. So whenever a issue comment is added, I want to trigger to my Azure function. Okay, it would trigger for push as well. Okay, I'll just add webhook. Once I do that, right, I'll get something as this one. Okay, so your webhook would be added. So once your webhook is added, you can go back, and once that is done, you can test your webhook. Okay, so currently disable this. You can enable your webhook or disable this webhook at any time, because they can be timer based, right? So if you have set for every 3 minutes, then it would consume a lot of your money as well. Okay, so you don't want, so whenever you don't want, you disable it. Okay, whenever you don't want a service, you disable it. So when it actually you enable it, it actually what it do is like you can check the log. So it's kind of timer based, which I have this particular function which I have created. So if it's timer based, then every particular few time, right, every few minutes, right, it actually goes and it would run a call on top of this GitHub. Okay, and onto the specific the issue comments which you have mentioned. Okay, so irrespective of any issue comment, it would go, and for if you added your settings, I've added the settings for the Azure Guy repo, right? So whatever issues would be issued, comments would be added on to my Azure Guy repo, and they all would be read by my function app. Okay, so let's I'll keep this window separate so that you can check the log. I'll go to my GitHub. Okay, I'll issue a new comment. So when I issue a new comment, okay, and okay, let me put with a date 9/1/2017, issued a comment. Since it makes a call every few minutes, so once I commented, you can see that issued a comment. So you can say the very frequent, I just entered, and GitHub has its Hawkeyes on, I mean like the Azure Functions have its Hawkeye on GitHub, and it says that GitHub webhook triggered. Okay, triggered, what is a comment? This is a data, issued a comment. So this is the issued a comment which I've done, right? Okay, so that's what is like the use of Azure Functions. So one more this sort of implementation, what you can do, like if you want to test without any issue comment, you can go to this one, and you can actually trigger a default request as well. Okay, you can run, and it would post up a request for you. One more thing is like you can change that type of calls as well, this GitHub calls as well. I mean, like if you're making a REST API call to GitHub function, you can make as I said, right, we can make a REST API calls using Postman or any other REST API clients. Okay, so the same REST API client is integrated with this, and in order to test your Azure Functions, you have a REST API client itself here embedded. Okay, you can select whatever type of the call, and you can trigger a call to it. Okay, that's a testing. stuff, and you can add parameters also your test. Okay, and that we will be doing in the this one, in this particular function. Okay, so this particular function is my requirement is, so I need to store an unstructured data using Azure Functions and Cosmos DB. Okay, so let me explain what is Cosmos DB first, so that you guys want clarity on Cosmos DB. The same stuff, the first task which I have mentioned is the same first task, and the same first task. And if I want to talk about Cosmos DB, right, it's a very niche service which we just introduced on Azure. Okay, so I mean it has such a such a powerful service. It is like Azure Cosmos DB is there's something used to be called as Azure Document DB. Okay, so that Document DB was kind of non-relational databases, but very scalable non-relational databases it was. Okay, it's not like a SQL. Okay, it's a NoSQL databases. Okay, like you can compare it with storage as well, but storage is not that much scalable as your Azure Document DB was. Okay, so one such example or the upgradation of Azure Document DB is this Azure Cosmos DB. Oh shit. Okay, so what does Azure Cosmos DB would supports, or the capabilities are like to talk about is like so it provides, it's very scalable, and the scalability it's across global level. It doesn't depend upon scalability doesn't depend actually on regional level or a DC level or geographic level. It spans across globe. Okay, so if you have a browser and you're making a call, and if you will have a traffic manager, okay, and you have a websites or web app in region A and region B, region B and region C, it's copied. So region A, region B, and region C, and if they are rapidly writing lot of amount of data. Okay, and you can use Azure Cosmos DB, okay, which actually can store a session state of this particular Azure websites, and it can also store the data of this particular website. Okay, for storing a session state, you need something sort of CDN kind of stuff, right? So which should be very faster to receive, or you need to have a session state server kind of concept. Okay, so the behind the hardware should support that. So Azure Cosmos DB, it's combination of each and everything. So it can support your Azure storage kind of stuff. It can store like binary large objects. It can store session state data. It can store your app data. It can store your tables or anything. Anything you ask, everything the Azure Cosmos DB hosts, and they are actually globally distributed across regions. Okay, and one such of implementation of Azure Cosmos DB which I want to discuss is like you can implement on IOTs. Okay, so IOTs are there's a piece of device, it's a piece of device, and you have Azure IoT Hub, to which your IoT devices pushes up some messages. So once you get the message into your IoT hubs, right, IoT hubs can actually run or push up all the raw data into your Apache Storm or on your HD Insight. Okay, Apache Storm is sort of engine on top of this Azure HD Insight cluster. Okay, which can take up a lot of raw data, and it can make up that particular data into meaningful sentences. Okay, when we talk about like big data stuff, right? So on Azure, that particular support is given by HD Insight. Remember it. Okay, so you can have the like once the raw data comes from IoT Hub, you can convert it into meaningful data and then push into in your Azure storage. Or what you can do is like you can actually push into Azure Cosmos DB in order to persist data into across all other regions as well. You can use this Azure Cosmos DB, which can have the telemetry and the device state of your IoT. Okay, what is it's running on or off or something. Those states you can have, and you can put that particular you can feed onto your Azure WebJobs. Okay, and you can have something called as logic apps. We learned about that logic apps, right? It's like putting some workflows onto your plate, and then to integrate a lot of different heterogeneous system or heterogeneous applications. So logic app, what you can do that you can have a web job, okay, and you can connect a web job and IoT Hub, okay, which doesn't have native support, right? Because Azure IoT Hub would only read from IoT devices rather than web jobs. Okay, so you can put logic apps in between, and then you can trigger an action to Azure IoT Hub via this logic apps. Okay, so that's sort of implementation with IoTs the Azure Cosmos DBs can do. And one such example which we're gonna talk about is like I'll create a HTTP trigger, okay, via my it will be C# code, and when I do a trigger from my C# code, it actually it should store an unstructured data, okay, into my Cosmos DB. Okay, so Cosmos DB can host any kind of data, right, which as I said. So let me push an unstructured data into my Cosmos DB. Okay, and that should happen when I make a HTTP trigger to my Azure function. Okay, and the UI would look like this. What I go and do is like I'll go to my portal, I'll go to the old portal, and what I do is like I create a function, right, like this and this. I'll just click no. Okay, let me go to the function app. I'll go to the test function app. This is my test function app, and I'll go to the function. I'll minimize this. If I want to delete it, I can go and delete it. I'll show you. You manage your monitors. Okay, you can delete the function from here. Okay, and or you can disable your function, and I don't have functions here. Let me add a new function. I'll create a new custom function itself. Okay, so it should be HTTP trigger and to the Cosmos DB, right? So I want a Cosmos DB. Where is my Cosmos DB? Where does it went? Is there in basic one? Shouldn't be. Webhook API. Create this function. No, not this. No. HTTP trigger C# Cosmos DB. Sorry for little delay. HTTP trigger. Okay, there's no. I saw it somewhere. Okay, let me get my input. That is HTTP trigger. Okay, HTTP trigger, and I want with parameters C# function that will be run whenever it receives an HTTP request. Okay, let me take this. I will take this. Okay, I'll have this HTTP trigger. It should be triggered with a C# with parameters. Okay, no problem. And then Cosmos. I'll join the Cosmos DB later. Let's see a function type. So Azure Functions type. I'll just create this. So once I have this, I'll have a default code. Don't worry about that. What I do is like I go to integrate. Okay, so my input trigger is an HTTP request, that's for sure. which would be triggered by a C# code. I'll do that. And my output would be, like I want to put that whatever request, input request, whatever object I make a call from a C# code to this Azure function. Okay, that actually need to be triggered by a HTTP request. Whatever input would come as an object should actually pushed as an output. Okay, and output should be into a Cosmos DB. So I'll click a output, and here I can search my Cosmos DB. Cosmos, yes. So you can put onto your Azure Cosmos DB or notification hub, or you can send an email directly whatever data is getting triggered. Okay, I'll just select on Cosmos DB for right now and select it. Yes, I have. Then what I do is like as for easy naming sake, task document, or put as task in front of every task. I'll put as task for easy recognizing, and then partition key would be there, and there's a Cosmos DB account which I want to create. Okay, if you don't have a Cosmos DB, write into your account. Okay, into your account you can create a new, or you can I have a the Cosmos DB, right? So I'll go. Your Cosmos DB can be linked with many number of apps, function apps. My Cosmos DB, Azure Cosmos DB. Okay, this is my Cosmos DB. So I'll give this Cosmos DB details in my account. Okay, account connection it wants. So let me go and account connection of this Cosmos DB. And now view and have. I'll describe a little bit more about Cosmos DB. It's very interesting. This is my connection DB. Okay, let me take this URL. Let's see it works or not. It says Cosmos DB connection DB. I'm not able to put up. So I'll just for this demo, let's go and create a new Cosmos DB itself. Okay, so we created it under Cosmos DB. We have this document DB. Okay, doc DB. Okay, the same is the displayed here. So I'll select the existing one. So once I select the existing one, it would just show up or link your Azure function with this. If you are creating a Cosmos DB or the document DBs, since Cosmos DB have document DB, it's have NoSQL DBs and other stuff. Okay, so you can create like whatever suits, right? For this particular type of data, when you select a Cosmos DB, it would create a document DB for you, since you're gonna store unstructured data. Okay, so it would create automatically, and then you just save it. Use function return value. I don't know. Okay, once this is done, and what I do is like I have this code. I'll explain this code. What is this? And so what this code would do is like it would just put a HTTP response message. Okay, and like what it would do is like it would actually create an object. Okay, the object would be having the name parameter, task parameter, due date parameter. Okay, and then it would make an object, and it would create a call to my Azure function, trigger a call to my Azure function. So basically, if that's an Azure function call, then it would be I have my test here. Okay, I have these all parameters added. Okay, and this is a function like this is a object which it will make, and it would store into my document DB whatever output I have defined. See here, I doesn't need to define what is the output of where it goes. Okay, what I'm just bothered is I'm making an object with whatever HTTP response I got. Okay, so I'll REST API client. This is a REST API client, right, where you need to test. So what I'll do is like whatever parameters this particular Azure function is accepting, I'll try to frame all the parameters and give us sort of value. Okay, and like let me change the values. Okay, and so these values actually I can actually put as a get or post or something, because here it would finally, the call would go to Azure Functions, and whatever the default method is that it would accept and it would run it. Okay, I'll put a get, and then I'll trigger a call to this Azure function from this REST API. So my this request body doesn't have, it just have name Azure, right? But I'm overriding this parameter in here in query. Okay, so I'll just run this. So once I run, okay, so it says that function started, my HTTP call triggered, and it says that my function had started at this time and it had completed by this time, and you have duration how many milliseconds. So this matters when you make a efficient Azure functions. So once this is done, my HTTP request triggered Azure function call, and Azure function got the response, HTTP response, and it from the HTTP response object, it actually from that request object, it actually took out all the parameters which I have sent. Okay, and then it made an object. Okay, and then it made a task document object which is actually of type document DB type. Okay, document DB table type, and it created a response, and I mean it would trigger a call to document DB. Okay, since my document DB is defined as an output, okay, at behind, so it would push into my document DB. And let's see and check where like it pushed into document DB, right? So let's go and check for whether the file is like pushed or not. So this is my last file which I tried day before yesterday. This is a file introduced. Let me refresh. There should be another file. Refreshing collection list. There should be another entry to my docdb. Okay, let me go in and check. So this opens my data explorer where you can check what were the entries, or what are the records have been added. And since we added a record from Azure function, and this is a document DB, okay, inside the Cosmos DB service. Okay, it will show the documents. Okay, so the first record which I've added was the day before yesterday. You can see that record here. Okay, okay, so that was testing AF, which record I added, and the second record which I've added right now is testing AF1. It should be, let it load. Yes, it's testing AF1. Okay, the same call which we triggered here, right? Which we have triggered using this HTTP Cosmos DB client, right? Okay, so testing AF1 is added to into document DB. Okay, so you can see that it's such an easy integrations with with the document DB, or the sort of power which we have with Azure functions are more. You can add a new trigger, or you can add a store procedure as well. You can add any SQL query as well. Everything is possible on DocDB, on Cosmos DB. Okay, and the most beautiful part of Cosmos DB, which I actually didn't see in most of the Azure DBs, most of DB storages, like you can actually replicate your data. Okay, so data, I have 2 records, right? I can replicate onto any location with a single click. That's it, and it would be replicated across any of your regions. Let me refresh. With a single click, it actually push ups your data from your India location to US location and anywhere else. Okay, so you have this particular page, replicate data globally, settings, where you can put like wherever you want to replicate your data. Like if you're adding your app is running in somewhere in India, and you are adding a data to Azure function or Cosmos DB into Azure Cosmos DB in India DC. southern India, and if you want to replicate it, right, you can actually define them. Or if you want to do it on a single click, you can come and you're welcome anytime, and you just click and it would be done. It will duplicate, and you'll see all the details here. Maybe I'm at the free trial, that's why I'm not able to click here. Okay, so that's the beauty of Azure Functions, Cosmos DB. Yeah, if more time permits, I'll work on more on Cosmos DB, and will come up with more demos as well. Okay, so that's what was Cosmos DB, and that's what, like, each and everything I have explained in the slides as well, whatever I went through the demo. Okay. So let me complete this. So this slide talks about the same plans, service plans. Okay, what we have. This slide talks about the app service plans, which you already know. Okay, and so the dynamic plan is that one only. Like I said about the consumption plan, right? So that is a dynamic plan. I have a little bit more info which I have added here. That's it. We'll talk about Azure PaaS and Azure Stack. I'm not sure because I'm not ready with Azure Stack slides. Okay.